Hi everyone, my name's Jen, I'm an author and a book reviewer, and this wasn't going to be the video that I was going to film today, but it's because of something that you said. So I was going to film, and I still am going to film, a video where I answer your very specific book recommendation requests. I put up a post on Instagram and said, are there any books that you're really dying to read that you can't find? For instance, I really want a book that feels like a warm hug. I want a book that feels like the 90s. I want a book about lesbians in space, whatever. And the amount of replies that I got that said, can you please recommend books that are like Black Mirror? I think that deserves its own video. So that is what this video is. And then coming up, there will be another video where I answer all of the other recommendation requests. There were so many. So I'm going to split it into two parts with 50 recommendations in each one. But yes, as I'm filming this, it is Friday and the new series of Black Mirror just came out yesterday. Saying that makes this video not evergreen. Whatever, the new series, Series 6, just came out on Netflix. We watched the first 2 episodes last night, loved them. If you've never seen Black Mirror before, firstly, may I recommend that you watch it. Secondly, you don't have to have watched it to enjoy this video. Black Mirror at the moment has 6 series, but each episode is its own thing. So you can watch any of the episodes on their own. They're completely different casts. They are completely different stories set in different universes. I mean, they're all set in our universe, but different versions of our universe. The concept of Black Mirror is to create isolated stories that take an unsettling close look at our relationship with technology, and the boundaries of the dystopian is really explored in a lot of detail because some of them will be very close to what our world is already like, maybe even identical, and some of them will push technology quite far, including things that we don't have access to yet and haven't created. So essentially what I've done is I have pulled, let me count, 42 books. 42, the meaning of life. I've pulled 42 books off my shelves. Some of them I haven't read yet, a small number of them, but the majority I have already read. All of these in some way are about our relationship with technology and are unsettling, or maybe remind me of Black Mirror for another reason entirely. I will list all the books that I mentioned in the description box down below. I am sure that I have missed books on my shelves. Also, I don't keep books if I don't absolutely love them and intend to reread them or speak about them a lot in future videos. So whilst I have gone through my story graph and looked at books that I have read and no longer own, again, I've probably forgotten some and I'll probably kick myself later. But whatever, let us dive in. So the OG books, the ones that I always recommend whenever people ask me for books that remind me of Black Mirror, are these by Alexander Weinstein. These are short story collections, which I think reflects Black Mirror in the fact that they are contained individual stories, each looking at technology in a different way. This is my favorite. It's his debut. This is Children of the New World. And the first story in this collection is called Saying Goodbye to Yang, which has actually been made into a film, I think with Colin Farrell a couple of years ago. So that's that one. And then the second collection by him called Universal Love is all about love and technology and how people are using VRs in these different universes or connecting through different dating apps. And yes, these are really messed up. I love these two, would really recommend. I have written a collection of short stories myself. Oh, Lola is coming in. She always likes to interrupt. Gonna come say hi. There we go. She's had her summer haircut, so she's looking all puppy-like with her short hair. You gonna sit down here? You sit down here. As I was saying, oh, she's licking my leg and it tickles. I have written many books, but one of them is a short story collection for adults called The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night. And I would say at least 2 of the stories in here could be Black Mirror-esque. The first one, which is called Animals, is set in a world where people can buy hearts online to put inside their loved ones if they're no longer connecting with them. Some of these are hearts that have been made in factories, some of these are hearts that have been taken from animals, and another story in here is called Plum Pie, Zombie Bee, Yellow Bee, no, Plum Pie, Zombie Green, Yellow Bee, Purple Monster, which is about a group of children who have plants growing out of their bodies and they're being used for research, and it's a commentary on the freak show and exploitation of disabled bodies. So yeah, there's that one. If you haven't read it before and you would like to, again, it will be listed in the description box down below. 2 Aliya Whiteley books that I wanted to mention while I remember, because I don't have them to hand. I will insert covers here. The first one is called The Loosening Skin. This is a novel where people shed their skins every few years, and these skins can then be bought on the black market. And as far as I can remember, because it's been a while since I read it, these skins include people's memories and scents. So it's not as if you're just pretending to be someone else. You can find out a lot about them. And another one that you may want to check out is Greensmith, which is a novel about a bio-librarian who's inherited something called the Vice from her father. It's this piece of technology, and she also has access to all of the seeds for all of the plants on the earth, and she's trying to protect them in times of climate crisis. These novels are ones that I've read and have since passed on to other people because they are, I think, more plot-based than I like, but if you're really into plot-heavy novels that are a lot of fun and also quite twisted, then I definitely recommend them. I wanted to recommend a couple of books that talk about surveillance in different ways. So we've got Ali Smith's The Accidental. This was my first book that I read by Ali Smith and remains, I think, my favourite, possibly because it's the first one I read and that's the one that I associate with connecting with her writing. But this is about a woman called Amber who infiltrates the family. So she goes into a family home. I think there are 4 members of this family who are really disconnected from each other. So disconnected that each of the members of this family think that someone else in the family must know Amber, and that's why she suddenly appeared in their house. But actually, nobody knows Amber, and she's just invited herself, and she's there to have conversations with them about technology, about surveillance cameras, about bullying and how technology plays a huge role in that at school, which I won't go into detail of because that's kind of a spoiler. And I also wanted to recommend Shy by Max Porter, which is his latest book, and I will link my review of this in the description box down below because I talked about it quite recently. But this is about a teenage boy called Shy who's really struggling with growing up, and he's feeling very overwhelmed by everything. It is about mental health, but it is also about surveillance because there's a camera crew there who are trying to film a documentary on what it's like to grow up. And Shy is finding this even more confusing because he feels as though all of these eyes upon him, including the eyes of technology, are wanting him to morph into this fixed shape, and he doesn't know how to do that. Love this one very much. Show Us Who You Are by Elle McNicholl is my favourite book by her. It's a middle grade about a girl called Klara who makes friends with someone whose dad runs a company called Pomegranate who makes holograms. They make holograms of people who have died and then sell that back to their relatives, you know, saying you could have this person in your life, you can come and communicate with them, it's really realistic. And people see this as a wonderful thing, but it's about the exploitative nature of people using this technology and also relating to disability as well. It's absolutely brilliant. I also wanted to recommend Severance by Ling Ma. This is dystopian post-apocalyptic, but does relate to technology because it's about a character who runs a blog where she's kind of cataloguing the world falling apart. This is a novel exploring connection, both using technology but also just face-to-face. I also wanted to recommend The Therapist by Nial Giacomelli, which was one of my favourite books a couple of years ago. Again, this is a apocalyptic type novel. It's about a plague, but it's not an actual illness that we would recognise in our world. It's an illness where people start to disappear, and it is a commentary under the surface about technology and again about connection and losing our sense of self. Also mingles with discussions on grief as well. I thought it was great. Also super short. NP by Banana Yoshimoto is a book that I read so long ago and I loved it. I hope that it would stand up to a reread these days. It's translated from the Japanese by Anne Sheriff. And speaking of translation, this is a book about translation. It's about several people who over the years have tried to translate this book from English into Japanese, but every time they've sat down at their computer to type it out, they have died. So it's about this weird supernatural relationship with this book and technology and translation and language and connection. Very eerie. Also very eerie, we've got The Need by Helen Phillips, which is about a woman who is an archaeologist. She's at a dig and she discovers some really strange objects there, like a Bible where God is referred to as a woman and a Coke bottle where the logo is just very slightly different to the logo that we are all familiar with. And she's cataloguing this extensively, and then a rift seems to occur in reality. I would say probably It's more like the TV show Dark, if you've seen that, but it definitely has Black Mirror elements to it as well. 2 books that I haven't recommended on this channel, I don't know, for about 8 years or something. If you've been around here since the beginning, you will remember that I used to talk about these books all the time, and I also always talk about them together because I read them quite close together and I can't separate them in my mind, even though they're actually not related to each other at all. So we've got Some by David Eagleman, which is 40 stories of the afterlife, imagining different afterlives. One where you have to do all of your individual activities all at once. So for instance, let me find you the numbers. In the afterlife, you relive all your experiences, but this time with the events reshuffled into a new order. All the moments that share a quality are grouped together. You spend 2 months driving the street in front of your house, 7 months having sex. You sleep for 30 years without opening your eyes. For 5 months straight, you flip through magazines while sitting on the toilet. So people are stuck in these versions of their lives after they have died that they cannot escape from. It's really, really claustrophobic. And then Einstein's Dreams by Lightman is a novel, but it reads like a collection of interconnected short stories and is also partly non-fiction in the sense this is about Albert Einstein coming up with his theory of relativity, and it's about all the strange dreams he's having during that time, imagining time materializing in different ways. So for instance, he imagines many possible worlds. In one, time is circular so that people are fated to repeat triumphs and failures over and over again. In another, there is a place where time stands still, visited by lovers and parents clinging to their children. In another period, time is a nightingale, sometimes trapped by a bell jar. I love this one. And speaking of short stories relating to science, I have to recommend The Need for Better Regulation of Outer Space by Pippa Goldschmidt. This is a collection of short stories about scientists. It says that her scope can be epic, at other times intimate, providing a forensic examination of human relationships and the forces that influence them. It was great. Then we have Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, which I can't really talk about because everything is a spoiler, but it's about a group of children who are at a school, and it's about them growing up and them realizing things about the school that they live in. It is haunting. It absolutely destroys me. I have reread this so many times. I would recommend the audiobook of it as well. I listened to that a few years ago and still loved it. If you have already read this and you haven't read his book Klara and the Sun, that one is about an AI called Klara who loves the sun because that's what gives her energy, and it's about her living in this shop waiting to be bought by someone. So I would recommend that one too. It definitely feels like a collision of Never Let Me Go and his book Remains of the Day, bringing themes from both of those and bringing it together. I also want to recommend Eliza Clark's Boy Parts. I would heavily recommend this one on audio. This is about a woman called Irina who lives in Newcastle. She works in a bar, but her passion is photography. She wants to kick back at male violence by using art and photography, and she will communicate with men online, or she will meet them on the street and then coax them back to her apartment where she will take photos of them in questionable positions. And also she is stalking her flatmate's blog to see what her flatmate is writing about her, and then she uses that knowledge that she's learned through technology to wind her flatmate up even more. Loved it. Very, very dark. Recently, I have been reading loads of books that have an element of social media to them. I have mentioned quite a few of them in recent reading vlogs, so I will go through this section quite quickly. But the first one I read a few years ago, and if you haven't read it, you need to. This is Underbelly by Anna Whitehouse. It's about 2 women who become friends because their children go to the same school. They never really would have connected otherwise. They are from different classes. They really don't understand each other's lifestyles. But it is about how Instagram obsesses them both and colours their view of everybody around them. This is like Black Mirror meets Motherland. It was one of my favourite books of a couple of years ago. Then recently I read I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel, which is about people using Instagram in particular and letting that frame again their view of the world and how they feel other people see them. And because I love that one, I then read The Subtweet by Vivek Shraya, which is about 2 musicians called Neela and Rukmini and about their relationship with music, technology, and each other. Again, how they are obsessing over how other people see them and then curating their selves and how other people see them based on how they see themselves reflected online. And because I love that one, I then read Idle Burning by Rin Usami, which is translated from the Japanese by Asi Inida, which is about a teenage girl who was completely obsessed with a member of a J-pop band, and she writes fan fiction about him. And again, it's about how we perceive people through technology and the internet, as is A Touch of Jen by Beth Morgan. This is about a couple called Remy and Alicia, and their whole identity is based around their love/hate/obsession with this girl Jen, who they follow on Instagram. All they seem to do is pretend to be her and quote Instagram captions that she has written to each other. It has filled the space in their lives with where their own identity should be. I also absolutely love Chrysalis by Anna Metcalf, which is about one woman who has radically changed her body to become a bodybuilder and has cut herself off from society, is filming YouTube videos encouraging other people to cut themselves off from society. This is about 3 people in her life, and we never hear from her directly. So we hear from someone who goes to the same gym that she goes to, her mother, and a colleague, and it's about how they perceive her both in person and then later through the videos that she puts out online. The Employees by Olga Round, translated from the Danish by Martin Aitken, is a novel set on a spaceship, and it's about the human crew and the humanoid crew, and about how they both become attached to these eggs that they discover on a new planet, and then it turns into this whole conversation about what it means to be human, what is technology anyway, who is running this ship. If you have watched the new series of Black Mirror, as I'm filming this, we've only watched the first 2 episodes, but the second episode is a look at true crime, about our obsession with true crime and how complicated that is. So 3 books that I would recommend that examine that brilliantly are Girl 11 by Amy Suter Clark. This is about a true crime podcaster who's investigating this long forgotten case, and then things get a bit too real. We've got Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater, another one I would recommend on audiobook, which is about 2 booksellers called Laura and Roach. Roach is really obsessed with true crime. Laura is not, because of something that has happened in her past, and then things get very, very messy and uncomfortable. A new book that's coming out this summer is Penance by Eliza Clark. I mentioned her previously because she's the author of Boy Parts. This is also about a podcast and about true crime. It is, well, actually it's about several podcasts. So it's about an author who is writing a book based on some true crime podcast content, but then also researching this case. But it's presented like a, not a found text, but a book that is real that we should criticize. So the beginning of this book says this book was published and then it was destroyed because it turned out that huge parts of it weren't true, but now the publisher has decided to reissue it and invites the reader just to take from it what they want to take from it, basically read everything with a pinch of salt. And I thought it was a really fun, twisted way of looking at this genre. So those are all the books that I've read that I would recommend, or at least the ones that I could remember were slightly like Black Mirror when I was going through my shelves. Now I have several books on my TBR that I haven't read yet that I wanted to mention. One of them is a new book that's coming out, I think in August. This is Cleaner by Brandy Wells, and it's about someone who works as a cleaner in an office block. And I think she hacks into people's emails. Maybe not, there's not even any hacking involved. They're just open on their screen when she's there at night, and she happens to read through them, finds out loads about their lives, and then uses that to her advantage. Sounds great. Then I've got 3 anthologies that I would like to get to at some point in the future, all based around a similar theme. So we have got Accessing the Future, and this is edited by Catherine Allen and Jabril Al-Ayad. This is about imagining the future and integrated technology and how disabled people can utilize that, how it will make lives better. Then these 2 are a pair. We've got Defying Doomsday, edited by Sana Dolcheva and Holly Kench. This one is also edited by Sana Dolcheva. This one's called Rebuilding Tomorrow. So this is about apocalyptic times and then post-apocalyptic times, short stories told from the point of view of disabled people, highlighting how society is ableist, but then also looking at how disabled people are so used to adapting to change and are also so used to using technology in their everyday lives, and how this may benefit them at the end of the world and also in rebuilding a future. And that sounds like a really fascinating concept to me. Speaking of post-apocalyptic, also dystopian and disability, this is Hell Sands by Ever Dundas, which is a novel about a world where there's a certain font that everything is written in, and whenever you read it, you become really calm. So I guess it's the government's way of placating the masses. But there are some people who are allergic to this font, and when they read it, it does not make them feel calm at all. This is a commentary on disability and about accessibility, but is also a dystopian, which sounds really, really fascinating. Another book on my TBR is Chimera by Alice Thompson, which sounds like it's probably going to be a mix of The Employees by Olga Rown and also Aliya Whiteley's Greensmith. This is about a woman called Artemis, Artemis, who's on a ship called the Chimera, traveling through space. She's been sent to go and try and find something that will help with climate crisis, but that doesn't really seem to be the actual reason for the mission. And it also is apparently about AI as well. A few short story collections that I'm looking forward to getting to. We've got I Want to Know That I Will Be Okay by Deirdre Sullivan. This is her first book for grown-ups. Previously she'd written for YA. This has that unsettling Black Mirror feel to it. A teenage girl tries to fit in at a party held in a haunted house with unexpected and disastrous consequences. A mother and daughter run a thriving online business selling antique dolls, but customers get more than what they bargained for, and after a stillbirth, a young woman discovers that there is something bizarre and wondrous growing inside her. Then You Will Never Be Forgotten by Mary South. This is a book I have been meaning to read for so long. I think it's going to be like the Alexander Weinstein books that I mentioned before. I have read the first story in the collection, which is called Keith Prime, which is about a lab that grows men called Keith who can do things for you around the house. The top of the blurb inside says, in this provocative, bitingly funny debut collection, people attempt to use technology to escape their uncontrollable feelings of grief or rage or despair, only to reveal their most flawed and human selves. I really want to read this book, which is We Had to Remove This Post by Hannah Barefoots, which is translated from the Dutch by Emma Rout, I think. Yeah, this is about a woman who works for a company that does content moderation, looking at what should be removed online and what should stay there. I think she sees obviously a lot of very traumatic things, and it's about how that impacts her mental health and her life. Another Person by Kang Kwagil is a book that's coming out this summer. It's translated from the Korean by Claire Richards, and it is about a woman who's getting a lot of online hate because she called out sexual abuse at work. So it's about people hiding behind online selves to protect their in real life selves. It sounds really fascinating. The Hierarchies by Rosa Anderson is giving me Klara and the Sun vibes. It says, in a society divided between those who are born and those who are created, fully sentient robots exist to cater to humans' every whim. Sylvie is designed to her husband's specifications and excels at pleasing him until she returns from hospital with her memory missing. That's reminded me that I really want to read that one. A couple of climate crisis novels. We have The Fish by Joanne Stubbs. This is about, I think, creatures from the sea coming onto the land, and I was thinking about this one recently with the news reports of orca attacks on boats and all of that. So this follows different people around the world and how they are reacting to climate crisis and how nature around them is responding, and I think maybe it goes into quite surreal territory. I'm intrigued by that. And then we've got Tumush by Sven Holm, and this is translated from the Danish by Sylvia Clayton. This is about a group of rich people who have somehow survived a nuclear apocalypse with money, and they have set up this hotel for themselves where they have radiation chambers to help look after each other. But then I think their society implodes. It sounds really dark and twisted, and again, I'm really looking forward to getting to that one. And finally on this list, I think this is the last one, we've got The Last Children of Kyoko by Yoko Tawada. This is translated from the Japanese by Margaret Mitsutani. This is obviously a novel set in Tokyo. It's about younger generations dying, not surviving, older generations not knowing why, and humanity just slowly disappearing. So those are all the books that I wanted to mention to you today. As I said, I'll list them in the description box down below. I would love to know what books you would recommend on top of these. I would love to know if you've read any of these or if you would like to now that I have spoken about them. Let me know in a comment down below. If you're new to my channel and you enjoyed this video and you would like to subscribe, that would be lovely. And if you enjoy my content and you would like to and have the means to support me on Patreon, that would also be amazing. Link to that is in the description box. Patreon is a place where you can tip creators, and the support from there funds my time and allows me to keep creating free content for everybody on here, funds my time making it accessible by creating captions and all of that good stuff. I hope that you're all doing okay, and I will see you for another video next Sunday. Sending lots of love. Bye.